Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to get into something pretty heavy, actually, something that impacts a lot of people, especially during their school years.
Right. Bullying and social exclusion.
Exactly. And we're drawing our insights from this really compelling Vietcetera YouTube conversation between two young women, Yen Ni and Thanh Ngân.
The title was Lo Yu Thu Ko Kup But Not and Hun Ti Che Huk Dung.
Yeah, and that term Tay Che, it basically means being boycotted,
Right.
ostracized.
Mm-hmm. Pushed out by the group.
So our goal here isn't just to, retell their stories. We want to really dive deep, understand the dynamics behind it, the effects.
And maybe uncover some, surprising takeaways about how people cope with this kind of thing.
Let's start with who they are. Yen Ni is in grade 12, aiming to be a vlogger.
And Thanh Ngân wants to be a full-time skincare reviewer, so very contemporary aspirations.
They started with that 2 lies and 1 truth icebreaker, which was quite revealing, actually.
It really was. So Yanni said she'd hidden somewhere to cry, threatened a bully with scissors, and written nasty things about a classmate.
And the truth.
She had hidden to cry, and she had written something negative. The scissors thing was the lie.
Okay. And Thanh Ngân.
She claimed she'd bullied younger kids, she'd been a victim of this tai chi, and had recently gone through it again.
And her truths were?
Being a victim and the recent exclusion. So right from the start, they're putting their vulnerability out there.
Okay, let's really unpack this Tay Che idea, this social exclusion. Thanh Ngân talked about a couple of specific times it happened to her.
Yeah, the first one, it sounds like it blew up really fast.
Oh, so?
Well, there was this group chat leak. She and a few friends had been criticizing classmates, things about appearance, like so ugly or really short.
Oof.
And when that chat got out, bam, the whole grade just shut them out, all 4 of them.
Wow, instantly. Just like that.
Pretty much. It shows how powerful those group norms are, and how quickly a group can turn when they feel like there's been some kind of betrayal, especially when it goes public.
Even if the comments themselves weren't maybe the worst things ever said.
Exactly. The fact that they were said and then exposed, that seemed to be the trigger for this massive collective freeze-out. It makes you think about the unwritten rules in those circles.
And the second incident she mentioned.
That one involved a former friend. This person apparently made a whole new Instagram account just to post private stuff about Thanh Ngön's friend, basically to expose her.
Oh, wow. That's targeted.
Very.
Yeah.
And apparently the account got a lot of followers, including their own classmates who were, engaging with it.
So people they knew were participating in this takedown.
Right. And the impact on the friend who was targeted, she just became really withdrawn, understandably.
That just highlights how brutal social exclusion can be in the digital age, doesn't it? It's not just whispers in the hallway anymore.
Absolutely not. It's amplified. Online platforms can make ostracism so much wider, so much more public, and potentially way more damaging.
It becomes about online status, too, using visibility to cause social harm.
Yeah, the speed and reach just intensify that feeling of being attacked, being isolated.
So when they talk about bullying itself, what's the core idea? Thanh Ngön's definition sounded quite simple.
It did, basically. You dislike someone, so you do negative things, gossip, direct actions, isolating them.
Sounds almost normal in a way, like just social friction. But obviously the impact isn't minor.
Right, that simplicity is tricky. Disliking someone happens, but when it turns into systematic negative actions, especially using some kind of power imbalance, that's the line.
Yeah, Ni brought in that power aspect, didn't she?
Yes, the abuse of power. Verbal, physical, whatever, causing real harm, emotional or physical.
And she gave examples.
Yeah, like actual physical harm, forcing someone to do demeaning tasks like cleaning, verbal attacks online or in person, spreading rumors. It covers a whole spectrum.
What's worrying is they both seem to think this social exclusion, this Tai Chi, is happening more often now, and maybe more intensely.
They did. Yanif at the threshold for it is lower now. Like even small disagreements or, misreading something online can spark it.
A lower bar for exclusion?
Yeah. And she even mentioned a thirst for drama driving it sometimes.
A thirst for drama. That makes you wonder about the whole environment, doesn't it? The social climate they're in.
It really does. This idea of a lower threshold, the drama, could social media be feeding into that? The constant performance, the need for engagement?
Maybe. And Thanh Ngân agreed, adding that those anti-bullying messages everyone hears often feel, kind of shallow.
Right. Like People know the slogans, but maybe the real understanding or the will to act differently isn't quite sinking in.
It's interesting that both of them have been on, well, both sides of this fence, participants and targets.
That gives their perspective a lot of weight, I think.
Thanh admitted she'd gone along with excluding someone just to fit in, even if she didn't personally dislike the person.
Yeah, and that's so common, isn't it? That pressure, especially when you're younger, it's often less about malice and more about protecting your own spot in the group.
It says a lot about group dynamics and how hard it is to stand against the current sometimes.
Definitely. And Yunni, she shared something she really regretted.
What was that?
She actually led the charge in excluding a classmate, someone she felt had changed, become negative somehow.
And a reason.
Fear, basically. Fear of being associated with that person, dragged down socially.
And the consequences were serious.
Very. The student ended up transferring schools, and Yunni felt terrible about it later, even tried to reconnect.
That shows the lasting impact, but also maybe the potential for growth after doing something like that.
Absolutely. Her reflecting on it, recognizing the huge effect her actions had, and wanting to make amends, that shows real development in empathy and responsibility.
Okay, let's flip it. Their experiences as victims. Yunni talked about grade 6.
Right. Being ostracized because she was dating an older student, someone seen as a troublemaker.
Even the teachers disapproved.
Apparently. And the classmates judged her just for who she was dating. She felt completely defined by it.
So her solution was?
Transferring schools.
Oh.
A fresh start seemed like the only way out because the judgment was coming from peers and adults.
It shows how exclusion isn't always about direct conflict, but about breaking perceived rules, even relationship rules.
Exactly. And then her second experience, that stemmed from her own actions online.
What happened there?
She got involved in some online trend that others saw as inappropriate, and boom, more social exclusion.
How did she handle that one?
Well, initially she kind of downplayed it to her parents, played the victim a bit, but then she was confronted with, the evidence of what she'd done online and the fear of having to transfer again. That seemed to motivate her differently.
So instead of running,
she changed course, she owned up to it, changed her online behavior, buckled down on her studies, and eventually people came around.
That sounds like a real turning point, taking responsibility.
A huge learning curve, it seems. Instead of defense or escape, she adapted. It's a powerful example of change, really.
And Sangan, she mentioned being targeted for her appearance. Body shimming, she called it.
Yeah, and teasing. One classmate in particular was apparently relentless, saying things about her looks.
That sounds awful.
And it wasn't just her. This person apparently did it to others too. It created this really toxic vibe, making her feel isolated even beyond her own class.
That kind of persistent negativity just wears you down.
Absolutely. It chips away at your self-esteem, your sense of belonging.
But Thanh, she pushed back, didn't she?
She did, quite assertively. In class one day, she took out her compass, the drawing tool, and told the classmate, basically, keep it up, and I'm going straight to the teacher.
Wow. Did it work?
She felt things got better after that. She wasn't sure if it was the threat itself or if the other kid finally, maybe, got it later on.
It's interesting that she noted another student got similar treatment, but just kind of endured it, resigned.
Yeah, it highlights how differently people react, doesn't it? And Thanh mentioned her good friends were a crucial support system for her through that.
Having that support network makes such a difference.
Absolutely vital.
So the emotional toll of all this, how did they describe it? Thanh mentioned an intense initial reaction, but then acceptance.
Yeah, it sounds like she processed it and moved towards acceptance. She even contrasted herself with Yunni, who she thought might be hurt more easily by it all.
People really do handle this stuff differently.
Immensely so. Resilience varies, coping mechanisms vary. Some adapt faster, others carry the hurt longer and deeper. There's no single right way to feel.
And Yunni's initial reaction?
Crying, yeah. She reached out to a friend first, but that friend eventually pulled away, which must have hurt too.
Oh, definitely.
But then she turned to her family, and she really stressed how crucial that unconditional family love felt, like an anchor.
That family support seems like a recurring theme, a buffer.
It often is. Having that safe space at home makes a huge difference when the social world feels hostile.
They both talked about lasting psychological effects too. Thanh becoming self-conscious on camera.
Yeah, and both of them mentioning that desire at times to just be invisible, to disappear.
That feeling.
Yeah.
Wanting to vanish. It really speaks to how deeply this stuff can affect your sense of self, your worth.
It's profound. It taps into that fundamental need we all have to belong and the pain when that's denied. It can also be tied up with shame or fear of more negative attention.
Looking long-term, they agreed the emotional scars are often the invisible wounds.
Right. And Thonningon's point about memory, that was powerful.
The asymmetry. Victims remember vividly. Perpetrators often forget.
Exactly. It's sobering. For the person targeted, it's this vivid, maybe life-shaping memory. For the one who did it, maybe it's just gone, a random Tuesday.
That must make the victim feel even more alone with their pain, like it wasn't real to anyone else.
It can definitely exacerbate those feelings of isolation and injustice.
Thanh and Ngân even shared a specific memory, right? An online comment from years ago.
Yes, about her appearance in an old group photo. Still remembered, still stung. It shows how those seemingly small online digs can stick.
Especially when they hit an insecurity and online stuff. It doesn't easily disappear.
That's the thing. It can resurface, re-trigger those feelings.
Yanni had that really striking analogy, comparing historical branding of criminals to the online scar people can get now, especially public figures.
Yeah, how it makes redemption feel almost impossible sometimes. That sense of a permanent mark for mistakes, even youthful ones.
And she mentioned her own feeling, like lacking a chance to truly atone for her past actions as someone who participated in exclusion.
It's a heavy consequence in our hyper-connected world. That online reputation can be so persistent, making it hard to move on or show you've changed.
If they could advise their past selves. Thanh and Ngön's response was just a hug.
Yeah. No words, just comfort. That says so much about needing simple emotional validation in those moments.
It's just empathy, really. I see you're hurting.
Exactly. Sometimes that's more powerful than any advice.
Yanni, though, she leaned towards empowerment. Wishing she'd told her past self to, physically stand up for herself more.
Which suggests she felt powerless back then and wished she'd found a way to reclaim some control, some assertiveness.
Different needs in those moments.
Reflecting their different coping styles, maybe?
What about their message to people going through it right now? Yanni's was really clear.
Yeah. Don't turn it inward. Don't ostracize yourself just because others are. Believe in yourself. Stay motivated.
Such vital advice.
Yeah.
Counteract the external negativity with internal strength.
Absolutely. Don't internalize those damaging messages. Maintain your own sense of value.
And Van Gen's advice.
Focused on reclaiming inner peace. Actively resisting that label of just being the victor.
Right. Remembering you're more than just that experience.
Exactly. Recognize all the other parts of your identity. Take proactive steps. It's about regaining agency, rewriting your own narrative, not letting the exclusion define you.
And what about bystanders? People who see it happening. Yanni had hopes for them.
Yeah, basically. Don't jump in needlessly. Don't judge without knowing the whole story. But, crucially,
if it's serious,
speak up. Get help. Talk to teachers, parents, trusted adults. Don't just let it happen.
That feels important. Bystanders have power.
They really do. And Yanni's call for informed action, for escalating when needed, that's key to creating safer environments.
Van Gen seemed to agree. Saying inaction lets the harm continue.
And she took it a step further, wishing bystanders would actually reach out to both sides.
To the victim and the perpetrator?
Yeah, to try and understand the different perspectives. It's a more holistic and empathetic approach, trying to grasp the full picture.
That requires courage, though.
It does, but it opens up possibilities for maybe more nuanced help or even resolution.
Thinking about what they learned from all this, Yanni seemed grateful for having allowed herself to be vulnerable.
Right. Realizing that vulnerability wasn't weakness, but actually led her to understand herself better, find inner strength, and grow.
It sounds like a tough journey, but ultimately transformative.
Often, navigating that kind of adversity, painful as it is, does lead to self-discovery and resilience. Recognizing vulnerability as a path to strength is pretty insightful.
Then Gen's takeaway was maybe more surprising. Gratitude.
Yeah, even towards those who bullied her and her teachers, for, in a way, giving her the chance to get stronger, to find her potential.
Finding a silver lining. That's quite mature.
It really is. It speaks to that idea of post-traumatic growth emerging from hardship, not just scarred, but potentially stronger, with a different appreciation for things.
Okay, so strategies for actually overcoming social exclusion. Yanni had a sort of two-pronged approach.
Yeah, depending on the cause. If it's because of something you did wrong, then step one is acknowledge it, work on changing it.
Makes sense. Own your part.
But if it's coming from others, envy, negativity, whatever, Then focus first on emotional regulation. Get help if you need it, professional help maybe. And then build up your own genuine self-worth from the inside out.
That's really thoughtful. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Not at all. Recognizing the cause helps determine the best response. Addressing your own stuff, building internal resilience, both can be crucial.
And fun and guns' main strategy.
It was really about mindset shift. Actively stop identifying primarily as a victim. Move past feeling helpless.
How?
By engaging proactively with life, focusing on all the other parts of who you are beyond just that experience, reclaiming your sense of self and power.
Refusing to let the experience define you.
Exactly. Focus on agency, on your multifaceted identity. That's how you counteract the powerlessness.
Their messages to their future kids were really touching too. Zangan was very practical and protective.
Yeah, like I'll make sure there's food, acknowledge it's hard, promise unconditional support, and that funny bit about wanting to physically intervene if her kid got hurt.
Total mama bear instinct.
Absolutely. Deep desire to protect and empower with a relatable touch of humor.
Yanni's was shorter, but also powerful.
Just that core message of love and support, mentioning her own experiences of being teased and emphasizing that family support builds resilience, unwavering love as the foundation.
And finally, it seems they learned from each other in that conversation.
They did. Thanh and Ngân felt she learned about different kinds of strength from Yanni, maybe more gentle ways to handle things.
Yanni.
Learn from Thanh and Ngân about resilience and that crucial idea of not letting victimhood become your whole identity.
It's great how their different paths offered insights for each other.
It really shows the value of sharing these tough experiences, doesn't it? Leads to understanding and growth, even from difficult subjects.
So this deep dive into Yanni and Zangan's experiences, it's really given us, I think, a much richer picture of bullying and social exclusion.
Yeah, it's complex. We've touched on triggers, the deep emotional impact, the different ways people cope, how they find strength. It's definitely not simple.
No, and the path through it is clearly very personal.
But what really stands out is their resilience, right? The strength they both showed. And their honesty, their willingness to share, that offers real lessons and maybe some hope.
Absolutely. So, for you listening, as you think about this conversation, maybe reflect on your own experiences. Have you been a bystander, been excluded, maybe even participated?
How do these stories resonate? Do they make you think differently about the social dynamics around you?
Yeah, maybe notice the subtle ways these things play out in schools, workplaces, communities. It's a complex world out there.
But understanding these personal stories like Yanni's and Thanh Ngân feels like a really powerful starting point for thinking about how we can foster environments that are, well, more empathetic and inclusive.